Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, hello, and thank you for joining me. I am DJ LP, and it is a pleasure to be in your company today. Whatever time it is, whatever day it is that you are listening to this show, I just want to say welcome, and it's a pleasure to have you here. My intention is not to take your listening ears for granted. However, we will be discussing a topic that you might not want to talk about. Yes, that's how things are running. My name, as you know now, is DJ LP, and you can hear me on Passion Radio regularly, Monday nights, 8 till 10. And that show is often repeated as well. We play reggae. I am a reggae DJ. That's what I do on these mean streets. I am DJ LP, but when we take the mean away and we start getting to work, I am a death care practitioner. Oh, yes. And that's what I'm talking to you about today. We are talking about dying, death, and grief. And that's what this show will be doing from now on, tackling such subjects. But today I'm going to be talking to you about two books that I've written. So, in the first hour, I'm talking to you about my life's tapestry. I'm talking to you about the need for my life's tapestry and where it has originated from. By the time we finish this conversation, you will be gagging for a copy of my life's tapestry. Of course, you'll be like, I need my copy. And it's not just you. I think every single person on earth should complete a copy of my life's tapestry. But we'll get to that in a bit, the reasons why and what it's about and the purpose of the book. In the second hour, we will be discussing Tapestries of Grief. Now, Tapestries of Grief is my second book. They are both workbooks to be worked through by individuals, by families, by groups within society, within communities, within the workplace, within our hearts and minds on levels that are both spiritual, emotional, physical, mental, and practical for today. We are living in a time of change. And so we need to be prepared as this world changes. I think that there's a scripture that says, the scene of this world is now changing. Bet you damn right it is. And, as the world changes, we need to be more and more prepared. Inevitably, as this world changes, more people that we know and love are going to be making their transition, and they will be doing so via the portal that we know to be death. So as people start dying more and more, and let's be honest, we've seen a lot of our loved ones are leaving the earth. We have seen that there has been a mass departure. There will be more. It's inevitable. From the moment we're born, we're going to die. So let's be more prepared for that time. Okay, so kicking off, I just want to say hi to everybody once again, to those who are joining us. My name is DJ LP, and I am doing this now, but I will continue to do this work and broadcast from this channel, talking about subjects relating to dying, death, and grief because it's necessary. And as time goes on, you will get to understand just how necessary it is. So, the first book is My Life's Tapestry, and I am broadcasting also over Zoom. So, for those people who are on Zoom, this is My Life's Tapestry. This is the first book. And within this book, we have the means to talk about our wishes so that ourselves, our family members, and those professionals involved in our lives can now abide by our desires for the future. Let me ask you this question. For those of you who have ever had to deal with professionals, whether they be in the medical vicinity or in the death vicinity, have you ever been in a situation where you've been asked a question about your loved one and you just haven't known? You just haven't known the answer. because you never asked the question, because you never had to ask the question, because this day was never going to come. We never prepare for death. Oftentimes, we don't even want to think about our own death, let alone that of somebody that we love and care for deeply. The thing about death, though, is that it will come to us all, regardless of our age, regardless of our color, regardless of our culture, our beliefs, our traditions, or our plans for the future. Regardless of our plans for the future. And so, this book, My Life's Tapestry, allows us the opportunity to live and to continue to live beyond that transition that we have come to know as death. So, My Life's Tapestry, as we look at the actual book, My Life's Tapestry allows us to chart our lives. It allows us to speak to those within our lives so that we can share with them the important stuff of our lives. You know, we come to life and we have an experience, and that is living. Okay. But oftentimes when somebody dies, when we don't know the whole life, we don't know the whole journey, you know, we just know those bits where we've kind of jumped on and what we've been told in the past. So My Life's Tapestry comes about after years of speaking to people who have lost loved ones. And, you know, I speak with people from all backgrounds, and I've had many short stories shared with me that really should be recorded for the next generations and those to come. So, you know, when the rug is pulled from beneath you, you don't often know what to do. Your mind is in a state and everything is up in the air. This book, My Life's Tapestry, brings clarity. It brings calm, not only for the person who is facing their transition, but for the loved ones left behind who then have to continue without their loved ones. As an end of life guide, which is the work that I do, as a funeral celebrant, as a funeral arranger, as a grief consultant, a grief mentor, a grief coach. I speak to so many people who have just had the rug pulled from beneath them. And oftentimes, you know, conversations such as these haven't taken place. Plans have not been put into place. And if they have, then our family members don't know where to find the money, under what floorboard, under what mattress, in what account, who's getting what, where's it all going, what happens next. So we start the book off with my life story. The person who is completing the book puts their name, the contributions as well. So the people who have contributed to the book, their name goes in the book as well. And we also have a space there for the person who is recording this information. So you may have a family member who is elderly, and it may be a grandchild or a friend or another family member who is actually recording the information in the book. The book is to be worked with, you know, you can do it on your own. You can come to me through www.dipism.com to request that somebody work through the book with you. You can work through this book with your family, with your friends, or within groups that will be running online. You can purchase this book from Amazon, and again through www.dipism.com. We're talking in this book about every aspect of death, everything that needs to be considered, everything that we need to be aware of, and everything that matters to the person who is making their transition. So where do we start with such a vast subject? Where do we begin? Well, we begin at the beginning of this physical life that we have come to know. We are born to a mother, and a father. We are born into a family. We are born as part of the next generation that continues a bloodline that carries the DNA of the whole history from inception. Yes, I know it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. I have a video. I don't know whether I'll be able to find it now, but within this video, we learn that we are from 400,000 plus ancestors. So many people have lived their lives, they've come and they've transitioned in order to bring you forth today. Within you is an array of amazing possibility. Within you is an awesome, my gosh, an awesome splendor that cannot be quantified by money. It cannot be quantified by time. It cannot be quantified by those people who look at you, who observe you as you're walking down the street or making your, in inverted commas, mistakes or your successes. You know, your successes and your failures can never, ever reflect on the person that you are and the journey that you're having in this lifetime, which I might add is only one lifetime along the journey of your soul. Oh, yes, we're going deep, but not today. Let's keep this light. So, in our first chapter, we are talking about our parents. We're talking about, you know, those people who give us life. Now, oftentimes, we're not raised with our parents. So that's the next question. Like, who was you raised by? Sometimes we are adopted. Sometimes we are fostered. Sometimes we are given to other family members or other people to actually perform the role of raising us. And, you know, sometimes we are quite hung up about the fact that we don't have our birth parents in our lives. But sometimes, and yes, I'm talking the things, I'm talking it honestly, sometimes it's for the better. Sometimes we are raised with people that we are supposed to experience because that's what these lives are. They are an experience. So, you know, oftentimes as well, within the African and Caribbean community, and this has happened many times that I've gone to a funeral and the name of the person has been in dispute. What, you know them as Caroline? I know them as Margaret, you know, or I know them as, I don't know, Punsi. We are often given so many different names as well for different people in different situations. So we talk about things like that. I was speaking to a young fellow recently, and he said that he had a conversation with his grandmother, and he was like, Granny, you know, they call you this, but it says this on your birth certificate. Why? Now, within our community, we have this kind of, what can I say, teaching, this understanding that we don't talk our business. But maybe it's gone a little bit too far because the grandmother turned to the son and said, mind your own business. It's got nothing to do with you. Don't ask me no questions. These are the kind of stories that we need to be hearing. What can he then say to his grandchildren? Ah, you know, my grandma told me that it wasn't my business when I asked her what her real name was. Come on now. These times need to be moving on. There are old teachings, there are old ways that do not serve us now. They did serve us in the past. They did. They kept us alive. And oftentimes they kept us alive, you know, against our family, against our siblings who may just have ran to Masa to give them information that would end our future. So yes, you know, there have been times in the past where it's necessary for us to keep our information to ourselves. But hey, today, let's start talking so that we can move forward. So within the family unit, we have religions. We have beliefs, we have ways and teachings that have been passed down through the generations. For example, my family on my father's side was 7 day. They were Seventh-day Adventists. And that has been quite a revelation because I've now come to learn that there's a lot of stuff that's been hidden within Christianity so that it can be passed down through the generations. But it's actually authentic African spirituality. Who knew? And so that was my father's kind of origins. But then I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. Is that something that I'll be passing down through the generations? It's not my desire, but there are some things I'm sure that will automatically be passed down because this is what we do. As we grow, we raise our children in the ways that we know. And so it really helps our future generations to be able to look back. And so they can decide what they're going to keep and what they can let go by the wayside. This is evolution. And this book, My Life's Tapestry, aids that evolution. Also, it's good for our future generations to know what our social status was. Where are we coming from? What were our troubles? What were our experiences? Who are and were our siblings? Who were our uncles and aunts? What pets did we have? Who were our cousins? Who were our friends? I've got a friend who talks about country cousins. Country cousins are those that kind of are family through friendship. They are auntie, not through blood, but through community. An example or an explanation would be that when we of the diaspora came over to the UK, Caucasian people didn't want to babysit our children. They didn't want to have anything to do with us. And so through religion, through our churches, through our workplaces and our communities, we came together. We stuck together. We were closer together. And so that's how you have this one being your auntie and that one being your uncle. They're not blood, but they're family. And that is why when one of us dies, our funerals are a massive affair because we are family. Our families have been forged together through duress, through sufferation. But it's through that duress and sufferation that we have given birth to colour. We have been given birth to life and love and a unity that cannot be emulated by any other people. Now, I will agree that our communications and our networks seem to be disintegrating. But again, we are at the beginning of a beautiful resurgence. I'm going to repeat that. We are at the beginning of a beautiful resurgence. And through that resurgence, we will find a new. It's like saying that we are the caterpillar and we are about to become a butterfly that is so beautiful that people will have to stop and give that butterfly the respect it deserves. Those times are coming. So going back to the book, we talk about childhood friends and fond memories. We talk about the schools that we've been to and the experiences that we've had. We talk about the favorite teachers. Come on now, you never forget your favorite teacher and you never forget the worst one either. So we talk about things that we enjoyed in our spare time, our hobbies, our role models, our favorite music and artists, and our achievements. So often we go to funerals and it's like, well, what did the person actually do with their lives? We don't know that they used to come come first in the races or that they were given awards for work that they did when they were younger. These accolades can live on. We need to be talking about them. We talk about the careers that we've had, the educations that we've completed, and the businesses that we may have also had, and how the different ways that we've generated an income. For example, my grandmother was a seamstress, but she was also a great cook. And she was also, she worked in a market in Kingston Market. So often we do more than one thing to bring the money in. I think it's just kind of like lately that we just have one career and we do that for the rest of our lives. But if one thing that we got out of COVID was about survival. And so nowadays we find that more and more of us are doing loads of different little things to make up the money, because in this time where we are experiencing a crisis, money is a thing. We need it. So there is so much more to this first chapter, where we talk about life. We talk about the experiences that we've had, even down to were they a smoker? Were they a drinker? Did they eat healthily? Did they exercise? And at the end of every chapter, we have pages for you to make even more notes. Going on to the next chapter, we talk about mortality. So, one's mortality is something that we often don't consider. We often forget that we're alive. Think about it. We often forget that we are actually alive. Being alive is not about going to work every day. It's not about satisfying your boss. It's not about going to work, getting paid so that you can kind of, keep the system going. Being alive is about enjoying life. It's about getting satisfaction out of being alive. It's about being in nature and seeing your world around you. It's about watching your children grow up. It's about being present. It's about being aware of where you are, of who you are, and your purpose on this earth. We have been so distracted away from who we really are that we get up in the morning, we go off to work, we come home, we eat, we sleep, we start again. Yes, there's the television. Yes, there's social media. These are all distractions, that take us away from who we really are, our purpose on life, and yeah, our direction. We all have a purpose. We're not here merely to keep a system going that was not designed for we. Okay. So this book also helps us to come to an understanding of where we are in our lives now. And that's why I say that, everybody should complete this book, because once you complete this book and you then realize that this is my eulogy, you can decide whether this is actually how you want your story to end. How you're living now, is this how you want people to remember you? We have plans. When we were younger, we had ideas of what our future would look like. Is this what your future looks like? Who was it? Benjamin Franklin said that most people die when they are 25 and they don't go to the grave until they are 75. Are you truly living your life? Are you living your life, or are you existing? Are you merely surviving? I want you to ask yourself that question. Are you alive? Are you living your life? Are you surviving? Are you merely here? What purpose are you fulfilling as you go about your day to day? Because if you're not living your life, if you're not serving your life, then whose whose are you serving? Whose purpose are you serving? Whose dream are you fulfilling? Whose calling are you living out if it's not your own? Okay, going back to the book, I do rant. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, because what I'm saying is necessary. Going back to the book, we talk about organ donation. Is that something that you're interested in? Is that something that matters to you? You may want to just put it down in the book so that your wishes are adhered to upon your transition. There are people out there who believe that their organs should be passed on for those so that they can continue to have life experiences. Is that your belief? And do your family believe what you believe? Are they in alignment with what you believe? Because you may just find that upon death, your organs go to other people who are in need. And in doing so, if they don't have your um, permission, if they don't have your agreement, what effect might that have on another life? This is deep. We're going deep. So these are the kind of things that we need to be thinking about. We need to be thinking about our rituals and our traditions and our beliefs and those that have been carried down through the generations. Do you believe in reincarnation? Is that something that you resonate with? An example for me, and I can only speak, of myself because I don't know what you're going through, but I know that I was raised to believe within that religion that I was grown up in, that when you die, you're dead. That's it. Full stop. There's nothing else. And then after Armageddon, you'll be resurrected to a life on a paradise earth. Something about that was like, yeah, don't sit well with me. I don't know what it is. I was like, I don't actually want to live forever. And the people that I'm supposed to live forever with, I don't actually want to live with them. I don't like them. So what's next? The thought for me was that if death is what awaits, then it's okay because I'm quite happy sleeping. I could sleep for the rest of my life. I'd be quite happy with that. So in my sense, death was never a fear. Moving on with the book, we talk about our financial preparations. So this is often a topic that causes a lot of strife within family dynamics. Where's the money? Who's getting the money? Who deserves to get the money? How much money is there? And what happens next? So the questions that come up in the book are about life insurance policies. Do you have any? And if you don't, are you going to get any? Is it necessary for you? Everybody has something. And in the future weeks, I will be interviewing somebody who will give us more information on wills and probate and the need for us to plan in advance. Why? Because if we do not plan in advance when it comes to our finances, anything that we have has now got the king's name written all over it. Yeah. When he takes 40% of everything that you've worked for, that leaves the family with next to nothing, is that the situation that you want to leave your family in? Now, my intention is not to be some kind of doomsday person, but we do have to be thinking about the realities of subjects like this, because so often our families are left in a pickle because we didn't plan in advance. Aha. So when we do plan in advance, maybe we can hide some of that money. I don't know. But, do you have a funeral plan? Where's the money going to come from to bury? Because recently and during COVID, we've seen a lot of GoFundMe accounts spring up because our loved ones have passed away and the finances have not been there to cover their funeral costs. Sometimes as well, if your family member has been placed into a home setting, then a lien is put onto the house so that nothing can happen with that house until the expenses and the fees are paid to the care homes. You know, there is a lot that we need to take into consideration. So, who is your next of kin? What relationship do you have with that person? Who is going to be speaking on your behalf? And what solicitors or lawyers is it that you're working with? Who has got your will? Who are your executors? And who is your power of attorney? These are questions that we need to consider with regards to our children as well. Please remember that we can pass away any single day, any time, any moment. It can be over just like that. If you have young children, then who's going to look after them? If you've christened your children, listen, if you have christened your children, those people who stood up there and said that they would look out for your children. They don't have to. They don't have to. They are not legally bound. If you pass away, these people are not automatically going to look after your children. Your family members are not automatically going to look after your children. So many of our children end up in care because there was nobody there to look after them. So we have to be thinking about this. And if you are going to have your um, appointed people who are taking responsibility for your child, have you actually run it by them? Have you spoken to them? Is their mode of upbringing in line with yours? Do they carry the same values that you carry? Do they have the same morals that you have? We really need to be thinking about this because so many children end up in the care of people that really are not equipped to look after them. So many of our young ones, so many people, so many adults who were raised by people, whether they be birth parents or not, aunts, uncles, whoever, friends, adopted people, so many people have been subjected to abuses that could have been avoided if only we planned in advance. So you've got your child and they are now in the hands of somebody else because you're not around. It wasn't the plan. But what are your children's care needs? What do they need? Nobody knows your children like you. So this book allows us to write down, Timothy likes to have orange juice in the morning and he can't have milk because that irritates his skin. Come on now, it's little things like that. Little Debbie needs to be sung a lullaby to sleep at night, you know? Baby Agatha needs to be given this kind of, I don't know, cream, or, we need to be passing on information. When there are certain things that our children need, we need to ensure that other people know how to look after our babies when those times come, because we don't know in advance when that time might come. Now, my book, My Life's Tapestry, also covers the animals. Yes, we talk about the pets as well. You have one dog, you have one puss. Who's going to have your animals if you're no longer around to look after them? Likewise, who's getting the kettle and the toaster? Who's having the bed? Who's going to get the mirrors and the lawnmower and the pots and pans and the tables and the plates and the knives and forks? It all sounds so, I don't know, unimportant. And really, once you've passed away, it really doesn't matter. But I have seen families fall apart over a carriage clock. I have seen families fall apart over a carriage clock. So it's really important to know who gets what. This carriage clock might mean the world to you, and it might mean nothing to somebody else. We need to sit down and discuss this because it matters. A lot of these things that we accumulate through our lives can cause trauma to other people when we're no longer here, because there are so many memories that are bound up in these items. So many happy times are bound up in these memories that are then connected to these items. I'm talking a lot. I feel like I'm talking a lot. But we need to be discussing this. We need to discuss what happens if I pass away abroad. We need to be discussing what pension schemes that we have, the intellectual property that we have. We need to be talking about our mobile phones, who has access, who has PIN numbers, and who's going to be contacted if something goes wrong. Who's going to be contacted? Who is the main person who's in charge in the event of my transition? If my transition is planned, then I have time to work towards figuring out who's doing what, who's who, what's going where. But if my life is over in an instant and I haven't planned for it, then what happens? What happens to those that are left behind? What happens to those who rely on me? Those who I have a responsibility towards? What happens to those who I love and care about? We need to be thinking in advance. So this book, My Life's Tapestry, covers all of that. Who gets the photos? Yeah. Who gets the wedding rings? Who gets the jewelry? Who gets the sentimental stuff? Likewise, when we think about the funeral, when we think about the whole end of life thing, who's arranging it all? Whose responsibility is it to find that money, to ensure that everything comes together so that we get the send off that we deserve? Because we lived a life, because we touched hearts and minds, because we raised and educated our loved ones. Whose responsibility? I often find that it will be the elder woman who is surviving, who is alive, who then is given the responsibility, not necessarily because she wants to, but because it's expected of her. And so everybody just kind of leaves it to her. There's no discussion about it. It's often like the hierarchy. She'll do it because she's the older one, she's the oldest one, or she's the eldest girl. Yeah. So she may have older brothers ahead of her, but because she is the eldest girl, it's the responsibility on her to do the work now of sorting everything out. Sometimes we need to just sit down and think about the pressures that we are putting on others. I'm talking about My Life's Tapestry, which is the first book that I have written. It allows us to plan ahead. It allows us to think about what's really going on in our lives, where we are at the moment, and what we want to experience when the time comes towards us making our transition. Now, obviously, we don't know necessarily when we're going to go. We don't know the date. We don't know the time. But what we do know now, I hope, is that we need to be planning in advance. So the book goes on to talk about that end of life transition. Would you like to die at home? Or would you like to die in a hospital or in a hospice? Would you like to be resuscitated? Would you like to be force fed? Would you like for there to be candles and incense and windows open and people visiting you? Would you like to have your loved ones around you? Would you like silence? Would you like peace? Would you rather do it alone? Would you rather nobody was involved in your transition? These are questions that you can answer now so that when that time comes, everybody who loves you, everybody who knows you, and those who are tasked with bringing your wishes to fruition can now carry out your wishes without that feeling of failing you in some way. I've spoken to so many people who have said, I didn't know whether that was what they wanted. And I feel so guilty because I didn't know. It's not really somebody else's responsibility to guess what you could actually talk to them about now. And often you will find that your family members don't want to talk about it. I remember when my dad was alive, he used to say things like, just bury me in the garden. That's not actually a practical thing to do. And oftentimes it's not actually possible, especially if you're living near to the water mains. there are ways that you can be buried in your garden if you like, but that was never going to be the desired option for my dad, who didn't plan, who didn't write a will, and his transition gave birth to a whole heap of bangarang. So, we really do need to be thinking about these things. It's not fair to leave it to those who love you. What's fair is to leave them with a map, is to leave them with guidance, some kind of direction, so that when that time comes, they're not failing you and they can confidently speak to the doctors and the nurses and the funeral staff so that your wishes are carried out in the vein that you would have wanted. Recently, a lot of people are using horse and carriage, and, there are new things that are kind of coming into play. Within the African and Caribbean communities, we didn't traditionally cremate, but things are changing, especially as times are getting tighter when it comes to financial situations. Do you even want to be buried in this country? Would you rather go home? If so, where is home? What does your end of life look like for you? Would you rather die at home? Or would you rather die in the country that you're in and then be repatriated back home? All of this comes with a cost. But when we think about it in advance and plan, then we can actually live, because it's out of our heads. It's down in paper. And those that love us can make those plans. So, what would you want on your headstone? What kind of funeral do you want? What colors do you want people to be wearing? What messages do you want to carry down to your children and your grandchildren? What were the secret ingredients to the recipes that everybody loved because you made them in your way? This book, My Life's Tapestry, allows us to get everything down in writing so that it can be made manifest on the lead up to your transition and beyond. Also within this book, I have a section for carers and those who are in attendance when that time comes about. And the reason why I've got these notes pages for them is because this is a spiritual event. Your transition from life to death is probably it is the most important transition that you can make. It is the most important transition, and a portal is opening into a new dimension, into a new world. And so at that time, you'll find that the veil is thinner, and your loved one might be talking to people who have gone before them. So that section of the book allows us to just make those notes. She was talking to her dad. He came through. They were having such an animated conversation. I wish I'd recorded it. There are things that come out at that time. It is a truly spiritual time. And so we have the opportunity of recording this history as it unfolds. It is a beautiful experience. And so let's capture it. Also, at the end of the book, we have room for condolences from loved ones, messages from friends, and those who have shared your life with you. This book, My Life's Tapestry, is a gift for the future generations. It is a gift for all of those who have ever known and loved you. This book is a gift to those who now are tasked with writing your eulogy. This book is a gift for your family members who have to navigate consultants and doctors and nurses who believe that they know what's best. They will do what they're trained to do, and they will go via the book. They will go via the medical dictate of what comes next. But if what comes next is not in alignment with the person that you are or the person that your loved one is, then you have to get it down in writing. It's as simple as that. So My Life's Tapestry is available through www.dipism.com. That's dipism.com. And you can find me on Amazon as well. The thing with Amazon now is that you would have to look up my name, which is Laura D. Pusey. You would then have to click on my name to find that book, My Life's Tapestry and Tapestries of Grief. It's all a bit confusing at the moment, but as the weeks and months go on, I will have the book available on other platforms as well. Okay, you will find if you go onto Amazon that an old version of the book comes up. It's okay. As I've said, click on my name, and then that will take you to the books that are available. My Life's Tapestry is on its second issue. And so that's the book that you will be purchasing. All right, so we're coming up to the top of the hour. I am going to play us out with Sherilyn. Got to be real.
Your life is a beautiful tapestry that only you could live. Tell the story of your life in your own words and allow your loved ones the opportunity to speak confidently on your behalf so that you receive the care and comfort that you deserve at the end of your life. Introducing My Life's Tapestry, this essential workbook is also a gift for your future generations. Visit www.dipism.com for more information.
Okay, hello and welcome back. You are listening to DJ LP on Passion Radio. Thank you so much for joining me for the second hour. And within this second hour, we are continuing the discussion. Oh, yes, we're not changing the subject. No, no, no. We are now going to discuss my second book, which is called Tapestries of Grief. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me. As you know, I'm DJ LP. I am a reggae DJ, and I am on your radio waves on an evening, Monday evening, 8 till 10. From now on, I am also here Monday, 2 till 4, and we are discussing everything and anything to do with the subjects of dying, death, and grief. Oh, yes, I want to say thank you to management for allowing me this space to talk about this taboo subject that people would really rather not have to deal with. But you know what? The truth of the matter is that we're all going to experience death at some point in our lives. It's the natural order. And so here we are. Here we are. So, in the first hour, I was talking about my book, My Life's Tapestry, which was my first creation to aid me in the work that I do, so that families and people, individuals, communities, members of societies can know what it is that their loved ones want at that time of transition, so that we can make plans together, so that we can work together as one in union, along with the book that has been completed by the person who was making their transition, so that when that time comes, their wishes, their desires, their wants for the future, their ideals for the future are recognized and observed, and as much as possible are made manifest at that time, because it matters. It matters. I am going to be I'm recording this show, and it will be posted on my Facebook page. It will also be posted on LinkedIn. And when I get some time, I'm going to turn it into tasty little nuggets that will then go onto my TikTok and my Instagram as well. You can find me at dipism.com. That's www.dipism, dipism.com. Dipism stands for death in practice, and ism is a way of life. It's phenomena. It's a thing. a sodditing set. All right. So you can find me at Dipism. You can find me on Instagram under Laura D. Pusey, which is my real name. And you can find me on Instagram under Dipism, D.I.P.ISM. And on LinkedIn, no, on TikTok under D.I.P.ISM. And I'm also on YouTube as well. So let's get into it. This is my second book, and it's called Tapestries of Grief. This is, oh my gosh, whenever I think of this book, I turn full. Like, seriously, like, this book is written from the perspective of an African, Caribbean, British born, black in inverted commas, woman in her 40s who has been raised in the UK, a child of the diaspora. This book is controversial. This book is a key. And I'll go into greater detail within this hour about the advantages of going through this book. But first of all, let me tell you, this book, as I say, I turn full every time I think about it. And every time somebody tells me that they've read it, and I know when people have read it, because when you've read the book, then you can't not reach out and tell me that you've read it. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I know that a lot of people have had the book. I know a lot of people have got the book, but I also know that they haven't read it, because when they read it, they're going to be like, is what is father? So this book talks about the social, spiritual, emotional, and practical aspects of grief. Those spheres of grief that we actually seek to avoid, because nobody wants grief. We don't want grief in our lives. But we grieve over so many things, from the moment we are born, through the transitions and stages of life that we go through, we experience loss. We experience loss. And so we absorb that within our bodies. That's just the natural thing. It's the natural order. The sad thing, the unfortunate thing, is that we are never educated on how to remove that energy of grief from our bodies. And so, because we don't know how to remove the energy, it sits within us and it causes issues. Okay. Have you ever gone to the house of somebody who's got a cat? And when you leave the house, you realize that you're covered in fluff, you're covered in puss hair. And you're like, well, it's all over the place, it's everywhere. Maybe the cat jumped on you, maybe it did stroke itself up against your leg or whatever. And you realize now that you're covered in this fur, in this hair. This is like grief. We don't often realize that we have it within our bodies, but it sits within us like a ticking time bomb. And so when we get sick, we trot off to the doctors and we go for medication that's not actually designed for us, medication that will quite often, most likely, give us more sickness, because all the medication that we have has side effects. Yeah. When we don't talk about our grief, it causes sickness to the inside. So we get dis-ease. Our bodies are not in balance. We are unbalanced. We get dis-ease because we are not at ease. When we then take medication to cover that dis-ease or to suppress that dis-ease, then we get sickness. And that sickness can lead to our death, our demise, more sickness, which then opens the door to death. Now, don't get me wrong, we're all going to die. That is a given, yeah? But we do have the option of choosing how we make that transition, through what door we go, yeah? Whether we take that transition our on our terms or on the terms of those who are creating those medications. I'm not going to go any further there because I will be treading on the toes of people who are making a hell of a lot of money, big pharma. And you know what? I don't need to. I really don't need to because the system is collapsing. So, as time goes on, as we move forward along this journey, as we come into greater appreciation of this work, then we will find that the answers are not in chemicals, but in ourselves. The answers are in our nature. The answers are within our DNA because we've got everything that we need. Okay, so here we are talking about tapestries of grief, which is, my life's tapestry is it's my baby, of course, but my life's tapestry is a workbook that people can do together, can complete together, can chart their lives. My life's tapestry is about the person who completes the book, whereas tapestries of grief is the book that somebody will work through in order to come to a greater understanding of themselves, the world that they live in, and their heritage, the line of descent, and the healing that is necessary throughout the generations that have come together to make us. The book is deep, the book is heavy. And so we start off discussing what grief is. What actually is grief? What role does it play in our lives? Why is it necessary for us to experience grief? Whose idea was it for us to experience grief? What I want to do is I want to start off by giving you a definition of grief. Okay, so grief is the pain and suffering that is experienced after a loss. Okay, grief is the pain and suffering that is experienced after a loss. So it's not necessarily that you've lost life. You may have lost your job. You may have lost your youth. You may have lost your family. You may have lost a relationship. Yeah, you may have lost your career. You may have lost a friend. Yeah, you may have fallen out with somebody. You may lose your house due to a fire or a flooding. You lose possessions. I remember when I was younger, when I was little, I used to have a dummy, what some of you would call a soother. Yeah. And I was in a pushchair and my dummy dropped out the mouth and it fell into the drain. And my mum refused to take it out of the drain and clean it up and give it to me, obviously. But, I suffered a trauma at that point. I didn't realize it, but I experienced a loss that was probably my first. Maybe it was my first. I experienced a loss. And then from then on, I started sucking the thumb. It's like, yeah, try taking that away from me. That ain't going to happen. So we soothe ourselves in many different ways. We may soothe ourselves with alcohol. We may soothe ourselves with food. We may soothe ourselves with intercourse, drink, I don't know, going out partying, picking up multiple people and doing multiple things. We distract ourselves from our grief. And whilst we distract ourselves, the grief works away within our bodies. And so we experience sickness and the cycle continues. So what we need to do is understand grief. When we understand grief, when we understand anything, we allow ourselves to stand under the authority of somebody else. I understand what you're saying means I hear what you're saying and I'm not going to challenge it. I understand your authority and I'm going to recognize your authority. When we overstand something, we master it, we take control of it. Do you understand? Do you overstand? When you overstand, you are in control. When you overstand, you see the aspects, you see everything that's at play, and you can then make your decisions from a stance of empowerment. When you understand, you are somewhat disempowered because you are following the lead of somebody else. You are working under somebody else's authority, somebody else's overstanding. We are to be sovereign beings, which means that we are to stand up in our own authority. This, though, is a challenge to the system. It is a challenge to those that seek to dominate us. And that's, of course, why my life, Tapestries of Grief, is a controversial book, because this book challenges our learned behaviors. It challenges our thought systems. It challenges our growth and our direction. It asks us the question, are you living your life or are you living under the dictate of somebody else's? What actually is it that you are living? Ooh, the book is deep. Moving on to the next chapter, I discuss the different types of grief. There are 17 plus that I have got noted in this book, and each type of grief is defined. Now, sit and think about that for a moment. You may just think that you are upset. You may just think that you are grieving, but it's not as simple as that. There are different types of grief: abbreviated grief, chronic grief, anticipatory grief. There are different types of grief. You may experience anticipatory grief when you are watching a member of your family, somebody that you love and care about, succumb to the symptoms of dementia or Alzheimer's. The person that you know and love may be gone, but the body is still there. So you are anticipating the time when they are fully gone. This is anticipatory grief. They've not gone, they're still here, but you miss the essence of who they are, who they were, who you knew, and who you loved. You know, there's a cumulative grief. Cumulative grief has been experienced by many during this time of COVID. Now, COVID-19 was a door through which many chose to exit. However, the word there is many. There are many people in many families, many dynamics, many friendship circles that didn't just lose one person. The numbers accumulated. So we experience cumulative grief. You may be grieving for a parent, and then a friend who died months later, and then a sibling who died weeks later, and then a partner who died maybe years ago. But you realize that you didn't grieve. You know, you didn't grieve for your grandparents. So all of this comes up in once, and this can be so overwhelming. Who do you grieve for and when? There will be days when you are laughing and you are happy and you are fine with the world, you know, and then there are days when you just can't get out of bed. This is grief. There are so many times when I speak to clients who say that, you know, I shouldn't be grieving anymore. They died 2 years ago. Why am I still feeling like this? There are so many reasons why you're grieving for your loved one. And time cannot dictate how long your grief will take to manifest. It doesn't go like that. You know, you can't just say, all right, next Tuesday, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be up and about and everything's going to return to life as normal, because it just don't go like that. Especially if you are 30, 40, 50, 60, and you've known your parent for longer than, you know, you've known anybody else in your life. Your parents or those that have raised you or those that have grown with you are likely to be the first people that have ever loved you. And so the chances are you're not just going to wake up next Tuesday and say, right, that's it, job done, grief over, stiff upper lip, march on. You don't. We of the African and Caribbean communities are not built like that. Yeah, we can try to get ourselves back to work and, try to function and continue as normal on the face of it, but deep down inside, we will hurt. We will experience sorrow. We will cry, and we will have to rebuild and heal. So, Tapestries of Grief is that book that allows us the opportunity to do so. Within this book, I speak about personal experiences and stories that have been shared with me from others as well, because we need to hear the experiences of others. We then, by hearing these experiences, realize actually, I'm not going crazy. I'm not weird. This is normal. This is natural. And actually, I can talk about it. And I don't have to feel shame for my fears and my tears. I don't have to be that strong Black woman. And as a Black man, it is actually okay for me to cry and to be in alignment with what's going on within my body. Because when we are not in alignment, then we find ourselves at a stage of dis-ease. And so, experiencing dis-ease, we marched to the doctors to get medicated for stuff that, we just needed to talk about. Okay, so again, I'm going to say that within the African and Caribbean communities, especially within the diaspora, we have this mantle that we wear that tells us that we're not to talk about our business. You don't share your business. When you're outside on road, you're smiling, everything crisp, yeah? You don't let people know what's going on in the house, because what happens in the house stays in the house. But what if being in that house is causing you so much misery? Where do you get your healing from? If the people that you're living with are the ones that are causing you the most distress, must suffer, don't it? You can't help it. This is life. We are having a human experience, and our experiences talk to us on all levels: the mental, the emotional, the practical, the physical, and yes, the spiritual. And as we move forward with our lives, we are going to find that the spiritual aspects of our lives are going to kick in. They are going to be triggered. And we are going to be seeking those that are in line with their spiritual awareness so that they can help us to get through the issues that we are going to encounter. I may just be one of those people that you will be seeking out. And the chances are that if you come into contact with me, it will be because you are experiencing a loss of some sort. So, as I've discussed, there are 17 plus different types of grief that are spoken about in Tapestries of Grief. But let's go deeper. Let's go way deeper. When somebody that we love dies, when we experience a loss of any kind, then we experience a transition. Not only does the person who has died, that person has a transition, but we do too. We experience a transition. Our lives are never the same again. Firstly. Secondly, our finances may become dented as a result of this person passing away. Our family dynamics change as a result of this person passing away. So we may think to ourselves, am I still a partner? Am I still a husband? Am I still a wife? Am I still a mother? Am I still somebody's baby? We experience a change in identity, a change in status. Our beliefs, our ideologies change. We may find ourselves saying, you know what, I don't believe in God anymore because I begged him to keep her alive, and gone she gone. Yeah. So we may find now that everything that we've been taught to be true is actually some kind of a fallacy that has misled us along a path now that there is, you know, only darkness to await us in our future. And yes, as I've said, we can cover it over, we can smile, we can make out as if everything's great inside. But, you know, when we are experiencing anguish, when we have to readjust, when we have experienced trauma, when we're going through exasperation, when we're going through sorrow, all of this is grief. And I will tell you now that when you go to a practitioner that has been approved by the system, they are not going to understand or overstand what it is that you are going through as an African or Caribbean person. Imagine sitting in front of somebody and having to now explain what Nine Night is about, and having to explain why your family has disintegrated, and having to explain all those aspects that make you the African, Caribbean, British born person. They can't identify with your journey, so they can't identify with your life. And this indeed is why I created FACFO, the Federation of African and Caribbean Funeral Operatives, because I'm looking for those people up and down the country who are doing this work, who look like us, who hail from our backgrounds, who have our best interests at heart, who know about our cultures, our rituals, and our traditions, so that when we say, and then when Nine Night came, I snapped, and then I did have to cuss off everybody in the house, which is what happened when my dad died. I'm not then met with a blank stare. I'm met with the face of overstanding. I am met with a person who knows what I am going through. This grief thing is a serious thing. So at the end of every chapter, I ask 6 questions. And these questions really are to be discussed within groups. You know, the book is to be worked through within groups, and then the questions are to be discussed for a deeper level of overstanding, of awareness, so that we can come to know ourselves, our beautiful selves, our authentic selves. This book is no joke. It's no joke. And I think that's why I just like, whenever, and do you know what? I'm going to be totally honest with you. The book is deeper than me. This book is deeper than me. It's channeled. It's a channeled book from the universe for the people. It's not aimed at any one particular color or demographic. But you know what? The book has come through me as an African, Caribbean, British born woman in her 40s, living and dwelling, born and raised in the UK. Yeah. So it's going to be geared primarily for people who look like me, think and feel like me, move forward like me. That's how the thing's set. So we do discuss the enslavement, the period of time known as the transatlantic slave trade. We discuss that. We discuss politics to an extent. To an extent. I don't go deep into politics because I'm not interested in it and it's not my remit. There's somebody else out there who does that. Yeah. But I also talk about, you know, that which we have come to know or understand, that which was labeled as black on black crime. I give ideas and suggestions as to why this might be the case, why we may be experiencing this. Likewise, I talk about the Industrial Revolution. I also talk about grief in the workplace. And I talk about what we can do to strengthen ourselves as people. So I talk about the funeral industry. I talk about stereotype. And, you know, there are so many things, there are so many aspects of grief that affect us that we're just not aware of. I go into detail. You know, when we're watching television or, watching videos on YouTube, when we're engaged in social media, we see so much death. When we're playing computer games, Sonic Hedgehog dies, jumps up again, dies, jumps up again, dies, jumps up again. When one person dies in one soap and then they turn up in the next one, it's like the idea that we have of death has been so misled, so misconstrued, so misunderstood. It's it's laden with fear because we don't know what's going to happen on the other side. We don't know what to expect. We've been given religion, and oftentimes religion has given us an explanation of what's going to happen. You are going to hell, and so you have to live your life to the best here. And the best, obviously, is to pay your tithes, is to, adhere by the government's rules and to conform and live in accordance with everybody else. When you don't live in accordance with anybody else, everybody else, then you are outside of society. You are a deviant. And nobody wants to be seen as a deviant, do they? So when we're bringing up our children, we kind of raise them to conform to the system. And in doing so, we keep a system going that was never designed for us, that is not in alignment with the people that we are. And so we see at this time that the system is collapsing. The system seems to be crumbling. So what comes next? This is very fearful. It's like the system that we adhere to is dying. What's on the other side of that? It's really interesting. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting thought. And being the weirdo that I am, I realized a few years ago that, I was raised in a religion that adhered to the interpretations of the Bible. I can't even say the Bible. I will say a Bible because there are so many different translations. And there is the explanation or the inference that is given through the book of Revelations. But I was like, Wallan, 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 Wallan. What happens after Revelations? What then? What comes next? What's after Revelations? And don't tell me that we're all going to live forever on a paradise earth because that's just not working at the moment for me. Yeah. So what happens after the Revelations? Well, I'm coming away from Tapestries of Grief for a hot minute. And I'm just going to explain that we were living in the age of Pisces. The age of Pisces was about religion, it was about darkness, it was about dogma, it was about misery. Everything that happened in the darkness is now coming out in the light. We are now in the age of Aquarius. And so we are hearing about people trafficking. We are hearing about the likes of Jimmy Savile and what royal people have been up to behind closed doors. We're hearing about the antics that people like Puff Daddy and Jay-Z are getting up to behind closed doors. When we in the UK was here rocking away to R&B and Biggie and Aaliyah and everybody else, we had no idea what abuse was being experienced by the artists that were making the music. There's a lot of stuff that's been happening in the darkness that is coming to light now. And even though you do appear to be quite crazy, I do want to big you up, Jaguar, for the stories that you're coming out with. So, going back to my life's Tapestries of Grief, which is the book that we are discussing now, I created both books in 2021. Both books were completed in 2021. There are people out there who will have versions of Tapestries of Grief because I have written it, I have edited it, and I have published it. And, much of the time I've then gone back and read it and been like, oh my word. And I've had to re-edit it again and again and again. One day, people will have versions of the book that will probably be worth a lot of money. And you know what? As is my baby, I will probably go back through it again and be like, oh my gosh, where's the comma? Where's the full stop? Where's the capital letter? It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. But what I'm saying is that the book is real in the sense that, it's not polished. And the reason why I didn't go through a real editing organization or a book publishers is because I wanted to speak authentically. If I went to a publisher, then they might want me to edit parts out so that it is more agreeable to the consumer, to the public. This book is written in my tongue. This book is written for people who look like me. And so if I get somebody else to edit the book, then it's not going to be authentically mine. It's not going to be my wisdom. It's going to be tampered with to an extent. So Tapestries of Grief is an authentic workbook. And I've never, in all my born days, come across a book that was written for me, by me. When I say for me, by me, I mean I've never come across a workbook that has been written for those of the African or Caribbean or diaspora communities for our healing. And that is what this book is. I have here a review that I was given by somebody who has read the book. And I'm going to share the review with you. The review was given to me audibly. It wasn't written. I've asked the person if they can do me a written version. And trust me, that's going to be mind blowing. This, what I got already was wow. So here goes. Of the book, Tapestries of Grief. It's a mastery. It's alchemy. It's part of death's challenge to humanity. It's the configuration that unravels the entanglements surrounding death. The equation, the key that fits perfectly into the lock of grief, allowing the person to take control of their grief, to release their pain. The book allows you to transmute. There is no need for a therapist, and there is no need for suffering. It is written in a way that allows healing on all levels. This book was written with universal consciousness. And 4 years from now, this book will fly off the rails. Reading that shows me, reminds me that the book Tapestries of Grief is bigger than me. One day I will sit down to read this book myself and I will be blown away. I will, because even though I have penned the book has come through me. I channeled this book, and this book will serve as a key that will open the hearts and minds of many people. This book will serve as the trigger for your awakening. This book will open the eyes of those who are currently dead. Hear what I'm saying, because I'm not messing around. Benjamin Franklin said, most people die at the age of 25 and they are not buried until they are 75. This book, Tapestries of Grief, will open the eyes of the dead so that they might live. That perhaps is what Jesus was talking about when he was saying that, leave the dead to bury the dead. And many people who are dead will never die, or something like that. I'm not even going to profess to know what I'm talking about when it comes to the Bible, because to be totally honest, I've chosen to forget much of it. But, you know, there are so many people who are just existing. They are living from one day to the next. As I said, we wake up in the morning, we go to work, we continue this conveyor belt. We have children, we put them onto this conveyor belt. Our grandchildren are then expected to go onto this conveyor belt. And we keep a system going that is not designed for us. We keep certain people in position. We keep them in place. We give them authority over us. And all the while, we accumulate grief. And this grief works away at our bodies. And so when it comes to the Industrial Revolution, when it comes to the transatlantic enslavement, when we look at our lives now, we realize that actually nothing's changed. We're still slaving. We're still hoping for some change that seems to elude us. We're still expecting things to happen that lead us to our happiness. Those that were raised and born into Christianity and follow it, and their hearts are on that line. I'm happy for you. Continue in that vein. But what happens if there is no milk and no honey? What happens if there is actually no heaven or no hell? It's always best when we decide where we go next. And both books, My Life's Tapestry and Tapestries of Grief, allow you to do that, allows you to take control of your life, to live your life, to experience your life, to be proactive in your life and not reactive. But it takes work. The work is hard. I'm not even going to lie to you. The work is hard. The work of clearing the generational grief, the work of healing past life grief, the work of healing the grief that you have experienced in this lifetime alone is hard. It's painful, emotionally painful. It's draining. It's tiring, akin to that which you experience when you lose somebody and you just can't get out of bed because your life just feels like it's over. There is so much. There is so much more, though, to us. We need to overstand these bodies that we sit in. We need to overstand these bodies that are computers. We need to overstand them. We need to listen to them. We need to listen to the parts that operate within us. We need to learn how to use our body so that we can move forward as an individual, and then as a family, as a collective, as a community, as a society, as a race of people. There are so many different energies and beings and entities that are actually working and walking the earth. This is deep. This is perhaps for another day. Because when I get carried away, we go too deep. So let's lighten it up. I want to thank you for still being part of this conversation. I want to let you know that as time goes on, we will go deeper. We will. We have no choice. We have to have these conversations. We have to come to an awareness of who we are and what we are doing here on earth, because it's not a mistake that you're here. Your life, your calling, your purpose, your being is necessary. You are a vital part of a tapestry. You are a thread. You are a piece of a jigsaw that is awesome. So completely awesome, that carries a value that cannot be quantified by money, that is timeless. You carry a DNA and a lineage. You carry a story. You carry multiple love stories and life stories and life experiences. And in this lifetime, you are to do the work. You know what they say, the sins of the father are carried down to the child. Well, this is the lifetime. You are the child. And if you want to break those cycles and create new cycles for our future generations, then you have to do the work. You have to do the work. Let's do it. Let's do it now. Let's get it done so that we can live, so that our future generations can live, so that we can experience and gain those blessings, those riches that have been stored up for us whilst we have slept. Let's wake up together. Let's come to an overstanding of our lives. Let's be as one. Don't get me wrong, we don't have to like each other. You don't have to like me. I don't have to like you. But I've created these books for you, so that you can do the work, so that your next generations don't have to. Okay? Whew. Imagine 400 years of enslavement, another 2+ hundred years of colonialism. Yeah? That's a lot of drudgery that needs to be cleaned up. And what happened? What happened in the time preceding the enslavement? Because we must have fallen as a people way further back before enslavement took a hold. Because if we were firing on all cylinders, you betcha by golly, wow, nobody would have been able to tear us down and bring us to the levels of which we find ourselves now. Okay, so I was talking about tapestries of grief. Tapestries of grief is my gift to you. It's a gift that you're going to have to pay for. Absolutely, undoubtedly. From the website, www.dipism.com. The book is £20. And if you purchase the book from www.amazon.co.uk, the books are £25. And if you get the book from www.dipism.com, then I'm going to have to add on packaging, which might just bring it up to £25. Maybe. And if you're buying more than one book, then obviously the cost is going to be cheaper. If you're buying a bunch of books so that you and your group can go through it together, then contact me. Yeah, we can do this together. And yes, I am looking for people who will act as tapestry guides. A tapestry guide will help people to complete their books, whether it be My Life's Tapestry or Tapestries of Grief. You can contact me on 07975 861089. You can find me on LinkedIn, Laura D. Pusey. You can find me on Facebook. That's L Pusey. That's L spelt ELLE, DJLP. Pusey, PUSEY. You can find me on YouTube under Dipism. Okay, I'm not hiding. I'm not hiding. I'm here. I'm here to do the work. And so I just want to say, join me on this journey. It's exciting. And it's going to get more exciting. It's going to get bumpy. It's going to get wild. It's going to get so wild. But I'm here and I'm shining like a beacon so that anybody who needs help during this transition as this system starts to decline is supported through the process. Okay, on that note, I am going to leave you now with Rebby Jackson, Centipede. And once again, thank you for joining me. You've been listening to DJ LP on Passion Radio. I'll be back later, 8 till 10, playing reggae. Oh, yeah.